Imagine a super powerful and dangerous solar storm on Earth. Chaos everywhere, right? But did you think about your phone? Mobile phone users have to watch out because even the amazing iPhone 14 isn't safe anymore. In this video, we'll talk about how these solar storms can destroy phones, even the best ones you've got. But the real question is, could it possibly wipe out the internet? Let's find out. First off, it's beautiful yet chaotic. Let's bring in some good old science here. So, researchers are still finding their way around the sun and the magnetized plasma that it ejects at speeds we can't even start to put into perspective. As for now, there's still a lot we don't know about these particles, which we call coronal mass ejections or just CME for short. But we know that they're super dangerous and destructive in nature, and that's all. We don't know how they're formed. We don't know what causes their randomness. There's a lot to figure out right now. Now, when these CME particles are shot out by the sun, this solar system hits the Earth's upper atmosphere, and for all of you that missed science class, it's called the magnetosphere, and sparks something we call a geomagnetic storm. And here's the magic. The storm happens when the Earth's magnetic field experiences a sudden and intense electrical and magnetic change. That makes sense, right? It's right there in the name, geomagnetic storm. Anyway, on the one hand, it can create the most beautiful aurora lights. On the other hand, the beautiful phase brings havoc and carnage to the Earth. So, we're talking from destroying satellites and the internet to rendering even a tech marvel like the iPhone 14 useless. There's absolutely nothing beyond its grasp. Following up, here's how solar storms can affect smartphones. There's a popular myth going around that solar storms can't affect any earthbound things, so only satellites are the ones who are really at risk. And we do not deny that. They're definitely in the highest danger from these solar storms, and we've seen it happen too. Just a few months ago, back in February, about 40 Starlink satellites were struck down by a solar storm. But the point is, it's not just the man-made objects at risk. Now, let's rewind to 1859 and see how these instruments on Earth are affected. During the famous Carrington Event solar storm, telegraph machines seemed to be short-circuiting. They'd cause visible sparks, start fires, or even start working without plugging in. And why did all of this happen? It was all thanks to solar storms' electric and magnetic fields. It turns out that they were so strong that they managed to permeate to the lowest layers of the atmosphere. Coming back to today, we're not using telegraphs to send messages to each other anymore. We've got smartphones for that now, with microprocessors and advanced technology. But even they've become more susceptible to the dangers of solar storms. Coming up, they're after wireless communication systems and satellites. We've seen GPS disruptions and radio blackouts even during minor storms. A particularly strong solar system can even remove mobile networks, leaving your favorite smartphones without any coverage. The iPhone 14 has satellite connectivity for emergencies when the earthbound network isn't available. And that's exactly why we're shocked, because even that's going to suffer a double whammy, as satellite connectivity isn't great during storms like these. Not just that, a powerful storm like this can even go as far as destroying the internet. Sangeeta Jyoti Abdu from the University of California said it could even affect the undersea cable connectors. And this still isn't the worst that can happen. Just a few years ago, the computer inside a woman's pacemaker was corrupted right in the middle of a flight as a solar storm struck the Earth. And that was because the powerful electromagnetic waves interfered with the processor in the heart pacemaker. So clearly, it's not just about luxuries. A storm like this can even prove to be life-threatening. With that said, we've been lucky that we haven't seen an intense solar storm in about 50 years. And that's the time frame when the majority of tech advancement took place. But then again, it also means that most of our technology hasn't been tested to withstand the wrath of the sun next time we see a super powerful storm. Not to mention, could a powerful solar storm wipe out the internet? Space weather is famous for how it's caused power outages or even disrupted satellite function. And if we're moving on to fiction, we've seen a massive solar storm wiping out the Earth's internet in Becky Chambers' 2019 novella, To Be Taught It Fortunate. A group of astronauts was stranded in space with no way to call home. It was a pretty terrifying idea, but it begs the question, could this be true? We're sorry to tell you, but yeah, it could happen, but it's going to take a pretty giant solar storm to do that. Matthew Owens, a solar physicist at the University of Reading, said we'll need to see a huge event to do that. And technically, that's possible, but then again, he thinks knocking out power grids is a much greater possibility. A phenomenon like this has already happened, even on a small scale. Call them whatever you want, solar storms or space wealth. But this sort of disturbance throws off waves of energy that travel outward and impact other bodies in the solar system. And, of course, we're one of the main targets. When the wayward electromagnetic waves interact with Earth's magnetic field, they will have a couple of effects. What's more, here's a simpler explanation of the effects. Well, the first effect is that they're going to cause electric currents to flow in Earth's upper atmosphere, and it will heat the air just just like your electric blankets would work. As the atmosphere heats up, it puffs up like a marshmallow, adding extra drag to satellites in low Earth orbit and, of course, knocking smaller pieces of space junk. Talking about other impacts, they're more terrestrial. As powerful electric currents flow through our planet's upper atmosphere, they also induce pretty powerful currents that flow through the crust, and something like that can interfere with electrical conductors sitting on top of the same crust-like power grids. And let's go back to one such event on March 13, 1989 in Quebec, which ended in a 12-hour blackout. At least that's what NASA has to say. And moving to more recent events, a solar flare practically knocked out about 40 Starlink satellites right after SpaceX failed to check the space weather forecast. Thankfully, taking out a few Starlink satellites isn't enough to mess up global internet access. If it has to take down the internet entirely, a solar system would need to interfere with the ultra-long fiber optic cables stretching beneath the oceans in linking continents. And here's the thing, about every 30 to 90 miles, these cables got repeaters that help boost their signal as it travels. So, while the cables aren't vulnerable to geomagnetic storms, the repeaters are. Up next, an internet apocalypse is terrifying but also possible. If one of these repeaters goes out, it will be enough to take down the entire cable. And once these cables go offline, we'll have ourselves what we call an internet apocalypse. If you think about it, it will disrupt everything. And we're talking about the supply chain and the medical system to the stock market and everyone's ability to work and communicate. There are a few ways we could protect the internet against the next mega solar storm, and one way would be to shore up these power grids, satellites, and undersea cables against being overloaded by the influx of current. And, of course, that will also include fail-safes so we can shut off grids during the solar system surge. As for the second, which is also less expensive, we could work out a much better way of predicting solar storms in the long term. Finally, can we predict solar storms? Now that's a bit tricky. On the one hand, they can be pretty difficult to pin down, and that's because while space weather's been going around for thousands of years, the technology it affects has been around for a few decades. With the technology we've got right now, it can predict solar storms up to 2 days before they strike Earth, and that's based on the activity of sunspots on the sun's surface that indicates areas of high plasma activity. But scientists can't track solar storms the way they follow hurricanes. Instead, they have to turn to some other clues, such as where the sun might be in its current solar cycle. NASA and the European Space Agency are researching ways to make such forecasts with a combination of historical data and, of course, recent observations. That's a wrap for this video. What's your take on the dangerous solar system being able to destroy phones? Could a powerful solar storm like that wipe out the internet? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.